Well, I'm Steve, and I do a YouTube channel. It's called the Carmichael Workshop. And it's, you know, if you go out to YouTube and search woodworking, you'll find a whole bunch of YouTube channels about woodworking. And really, I think it's the only place you can find woodworking content today, aside from, I think Tommy Mack has a TV show that's on public broadcasting. I'm not sure if there's any others, but since Norm Abram quit, there's not that many woodworking shows on TV anymore. So really, YouTube has become the way to the place you go to watch woodworking videos. But I started my channel 3 years ago, and since then I've gotten up to, I think I'm about 34,000 subscribers right now. So, and I've got about 120 videos out there, just on different projects. And let's see, it's about, I guess it was January. Inventables, the company that makes these small CNC machines, this kind of a desktop version, they're trying to make it very user-friendly, so you don't have to know computer programming or anything to use it. So they saw my channel out there and saw my videos and contacted me and asked me if I wanted a CNC machine. Well, of course I said yeah. But they, you know, they said, all we want you to do is we'll give you the free machine. We just want you to make a video of you assembling it and maybe doing a project with it. So what they're trying to do is give these to some woodworkers out there who have YouTube channels, so they can show how easy it is to put one of these together and build something with it. So that's how that came about, is they saw my channel and they asked me if I wanted a machine, so I said yeah, so they sent me one. You know, I've only been working with CNCs, this one, since February is when I put it together. So I have, you know, I'm kind of a newbie, so I don't know that much about it. And the software that they provide is very easy. You don't have to know how to write G code, and you don't have to know all this technical stuff to use it. So, so what I wanted to do today is show you a little bit about CNCs, just some general information. If you don't know that much about them, how many people have a CNC machine? All right, good. That's more than I expected, actually. But I know some of you guys have much larger ones, like Ralph has. What size is yours? 5 by 10 feet. Yeah. So, you know, if you guys want to chime in with anything to add to the presentation, that'd be great. So, but let's just go ahead and go through my little presentation here. First of all, let's start with the basics. What is CNC? The letters stand for Computer Numerical Control. And from what I understand, that came from MIT. But when it first started, they were making airplane propellers using the computers that used the cards. And it started out, I think they called it a cardomatic or something. But they used these punch cards to control the machine to make airplane propellers. Well, from that point, it moved into basically they called it numerical control, where they could control the machine with you know, XY coordinates, XYZ coordinates. And then eventually it became computer numerical control, where a computer could control the machine. So that's where CNC comes from. Now, 3D carving seems to be the new term for CNC. And I know Inventables is big on, you know, converting everyone into, instead of saying CNC, saying 3D carving, because it's more, I guess, descriptive of what it does rather than what controls the machine. Because I know when I'm talking to people at work or family or something, and I tell them I have a CNC machine, they don't really know what I'm talking about. But if I say I have something that does 3D carving, then, you know, it kind of sets in the mind, oh, you can carve things out of wood, you know. So, and it makes it more general public friendly, I guess. Instead of just saying CNC, you can say 3D carving, and people know what you're talking about. But the way it works, it uses the XYZ coordinates to control the machine and tell it where to go. And you have cutters on there that will cut the wood or whatever material you have. And there are possibilities to add a fourth axis, which would be like turning on a lathe, where you could add an attachment to this that will spin a piece of wood so that it can carve around the piece of wood. So whenever you hear fourth axis, that's kind of referring to that. So, just a little bit about the background I was talking about a minute ago. In January, Inventables offered me this is called the Shapeoko 2. And in February, I built it and did my video on it, put it out there. And then in March, they offered me an X-Carve, which is the newer, upgraded version of this. And it's easier to assemble, it's black, it's got some other improvements to it. I've got a picture in here of it. And then in June, just this month, I built the new X-Carve that they sent me. And they sent me its larger one. So it's, imagine 4 of these sitting together. So it's about 4 feet by 4 feet footprint. And it will cut 31-inch by 31-inch area. So I could do a larger sign or something with that one. As opposed to this one does about 11 by 11 inches. So basically I have over 120 days of CNC experience.
Hey!
I thought that sounded better than 3 months. So. Ricky?
I've seen your shop. Where is it?
Well,
This side of the garage.
yeah, in my, I have a 2-car garage, just your standard garage. And I have my shop on my wife's side of the garage. She parks outside now. That's like that's if you go to my YouTube channel, that's my slogan: woodworking on my wife's side of the garage. And the other side of the garage, the front half by the door is where we keep our gardening stuff and our lawnmower and all that stuff. And the back half of that, I made a small room inside the garage with a door and its own little ceiling. I made it for my drum room, where I can have my drums in there and play and kind of keep some of the noise contained. Well, the drums only take up half of that room, so I have the CNC in the other half. And the good thing about that is I've got a little window unit air conditioner on the room. And so I can open the garage door so the air conditioner will vent out, but I'm enclosed inside the room with the air conditioning. So now I can carve, or I can tell the machine to carve while I'm sitting in the air conditioning. But this is called the Shapeoko 2, which is kind of a weird name. But so I put down here where that name came from. When they put this together, they were kind of using a couple of different things. Shapeways was a 3D printing company, and Ponoko was a laser cutting company. So whoever put this together was doing something with those, and they thought it'd be cute to combine parts of those names. That's where Shapeoko came up with, or came from. So what can you do with it? You can write with a pen on it. That's really one of the first projects, kind of a test project you do. You strap a Sharpie to it, and you actually write out some words and things just to test it, see if it's working right. So you can attach like a Sharpie or whatever to it. You can cut and engrave with a router. You can. It comes with this rotary tool here, but you can add like a Bosch Colt or DeWalt. I think it's a 660 is the small one. You can add a laser attachment. I've seen some guys in forums where they've shown pictures of their laser attachments that they can do. You can do 3D carving using special software out there that you can buy. There is some free software out there, but you kind of get what you pay for, I think. But 3D carving and 2.5D carving, the difference there is 2.5 is it will cut like in steps. So the cutter can like make a pass, and then it can step down and make another pass. But when you're 2.5D carving, you can't do like a ramp. It's more like, you know, it moves over here, it goes down a little bit, and then cuts some more, and then it goes down some more and cuts some more. It can't do like a ramp. So like if you want to carve out somebody's face out of wood, then you would need to do 3D carving where it could, you know, do those contours and go up and down in like a ramp fashion. The Inventables, they have a website that's really user-friendly. And right now you can only do 2.5D carving in it. They haven't programmed it to do 3D carving yet. But there is software out there where you can do 3D. But for a lot of things like a sign here, you can do without doing the 3D. So all that is done on this machine. It's a lot of small things you can do. You can do two-sided carving. For example, I'm getting ready to do a project where I make a guitar on CNC. I'm going to do the whole body and the whole neck and everything on the CNC machine. Well, to do the neck, the back of a guitar neck is kind of rounded. So what you have to do is you would set your blank on the machine, and I've seen where you can use pins at each end of your board to set the board in place and then carve the front side of the neck. And then if you flip it over and put it on the same pins, the board's in the same location, and then you can carve the back of the neck. So the two sides match up in the middle. So.
Would it be, just a thought, would it be easier to have just a little bit of that extra on it and just a hole in it so you can have a locating pin?
Yeah, and then eventually you would cut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do inlays. Like over here, a small picture of a cutting board with like a cheeseburger that's inlaid. And there's a couple ways you can do that. You can, you know, carve out the letters like I've done here, or the logo or whatever, and then fill it with a colored epoxy or something and then sand it flat. Or you could actually cut out the inlay part out of wood and then carve out the recess and then insert that wood into the recess. I have not tried that yet, but I've seen guys do that. You can do, there's big giant CNCs that do furniture, cabinets, guitars. It's good for making a bunch of parts. Signs, there's guys that do circuit boards, skateboards, boxes like joinery over here in the corner is an example of that. And I've even seen guys attach sanders to it and have it do sanding for you. So that was kind of interesting. Like I could attach a little sanding thing to this rotary tool and have it do some sanding for me. So I thought that'd be interesting. What materials can you cut? You can do wood, metal, plastics, corian, vinyl, and there's a lot of other materials out there. These are some pictures from the Inventables website, but they've got a lot of products you can choose from. But you know, like over here, I've got pretty much pine and some maple, and that was my first attempt at doing acrylic. This one here is Rob's wood shop. I did that for Rob. But my plan is to add some LEDs to that so it shines up. So it, you know, it'll change from purple to green to blue, and you can do cool stuff like that.
Much like Rob does. Much like Rob does.
Yeah. Whenever you're cutting these different materials, you just have to make sure you're using the right bit for the material. The benefits are that it's automated, it's accurate, repeatable, it's flexible with switching projects. I could real quickly carve one thing, change out my blank, and then load up another file and carve something else. So it's real quick and easy to do that. It's good for repetitive stuff. Like if you have to make 20 of something, like 20 plaques, then it'd be really easy to do that with this. And you real quickly figure out a way to attach a vacuum attachment so you don't have to sit there with the vacuum cleaner and follow it along. Some of the challenges, this one requires assembly, and then they sent me that new one, so I had to assemble it too. You can see in the top picture up there, it came in a bunch of little Ziploc bags. So every part you see on here was separate. So every little screw, washer, it was like part numbers were like 6 digits. So I was sitting there trying to find all these part numbers. I had my reading glasses on. But that's kind of what my workbench looked like up there when I was putting it together. Those are the parts for the new one that they sent me. It helps if you have mechanical or electrical experience, especially if you're building your own thing. They had videos showing how to assemble it and good instructions, so it is pretty straightforward. A lot of the wiring attachments are just screws, terminal blocks that you screw down. So. The software does have a learning curve to it. I haven't gotten too much into the other software that's out there. I've mainly been using the Inventables. They have a web-based software that you can just log into and you can create real simple projects. You can type text, you can add shapes, you can import a logo, and just have the system carve it without you having to know how to write G code and do all that technical stuff. So they made it really easy to use. It's kind of expensive. This one sold for $6.99 when it was on the market. And of course you had to put it together. And it took me about 10 hours, I think, to put it together. So, and I've got a video out there showing me putting it together, different video clips. But, this is the desktop version. The new one, the X-Carve, I think is $7.99. So it's really the least expensive way to get into it. The speed is kind of slow. It depends on your tools you're using. And what you're cutting, and the bit size, and what kind of sign or logo you're cutting. So, but if you're cutting all the way through a 3/4 inch thick piece of wood, it's going to have to do it in multiple passes, like 10, 15, or maybe even 20 passes, depending on the wood. So, that can take a long time. Where you could just take it over to the bandsaw and cut it real quickly. So there's this big debate over whether using a CNC is woodworking. But to me, I just see it as another tool in your shop that can do things that you wouldn't normally do. Like I wouldn't normally make these little signs over here. So for me, that's what it adds in my shop, is the ability to personalize stuff with initials or make signs, that look nice. If I tried to do that by hand with a router or something, it wouldn't look that good. So it does have size limitations. Like this one, it'll do like an 11 by 11 inch area. So you do have to get a bigger one if you want to cut bigger stuff.
How much is the bigger one?
The bigger one, it's the 4x4 feet, which cuts a 31 by 31 inch area, is $12.99, I think. And the way their website's set up is you can pick the parts you want. Like you could order just, the bare minimum. If you had a way to, the MDF board, the shipping for that board It's basically a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of MDF that comes in a big giant box. But the shipping for that was $100 and something UPS. And the board itself was like, you know, $60 or $80 because they've got it screen printed with the grid and everything, and threaded inserts for hold down clamps. So, you know, if you eliminated that, then that would save you some money. So,
For the
yeah.
upper ones, the motors come with them, routers come with them, you still have to buy the router in addition.
They have a stock spindle, like an entry level one that, you know, you can get with it, or you can say I don't want the spindle, and you could go buy your own. If you already have like a Bosch Colt or something, you can add that to it. They do sell mounts for the Bosch and the DeWalt, so you could buy the mount instead and mount your own router in it if you wanted to. Yeah, Alex?
Steve, after you buy the basic kit, can you purchase like your own rails then, and then sort of make it longer, so you can have a longer bed and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Buy it?
Yeah, on the site you can. You'd probably have to call them if you want a certain length rails that they don't offer. They can.
Those rails look like they're just extruded aluminum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's other parts too, like lead screws and things like that. That you're not, how do they?
Right.
So I mean, you got to.
Yeah, they sell. It's all open source, and they sell every part separately.
But it's not just new rails.
Right. You have to have. You have to get belts as well.
But those items, I mean, you could buy those on eBay a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty standard rails and you know, lead screws and things like that. It's pretty much what any one of those area stores or whatever. So I don't know if you can modify it after you get it and just buy longer items to make your bed, your footprint a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you can. It's real simple to, you know, make it longer in one direction or both directions. There is a certain point where these rails, you know, if you try to do 8 feet long with these rails, it's probably sag in the middle. So then you have to move up to a more robust rail, larger rail, you know. But yeah, you can order everything separately. There's guys out there who have a complete parts list of how they built their CNC machine, a DIY version, and they've provided all their information so you could just order it and build it yourself, you know. So it's all out there.
What's the maximum Z movement on this?
Oh, this one will cut 2.5 inch thick material you can put in there. That's all the travel you have. There are people out there who have taken off the wasteboard here, and underneath it's open. So like you could put that on top of like a wooden frame that's open, and you could put like a 3 foot, I don't know, like a tree trunk, and carve something in the top of the tree trunk, as long as you can get it up to the spindle there if you take that board off. Also notice that it's open in this direction. So if you want to do a 3 foot sign, you could like stick it in there and carve the first 11 inches and then have another project you can load, and then you can slide it to the next section of 11 inches and carve that part. As long as you can get them lined up, you could do, you know, as long a board as you want, as long as you can hold it in there and get it registered so that every time you carve a section of that sign or whatever, it's all lined up. Yeah?
A question, you have something that you want to make a reproduction of. Is there scanning software or something like that if I want to take a picture of a coin and then get the rise and fall of George Washington's head or something like that, is there a program that allows you to take an image of that and then transfer it to that?
Yeah, there's
So
software.
you can cut a coin, basically?
Yeah, there's software out there that will allow you to take an image and do that with it, and do the 3D rise and fall carving. Yeah, I haven't gone to that level, but there is software out there you can do that with. Yeah.
I have a friend in Houston that says the more stuff you have, the more stuff you have can break.
Yeah.
When things don't go right, or when you're kind of messed, or is that, what do they have for a help desk or help situation or help forum?
Oh, the Inventables?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a great forum where you can log on and research and find other people that have had the same problem and see how they fix it. Or you can call the company. That's one thing Inventables is great about. I don't want to do an Inventables commercial, but even the CEO, Zach Kaplan, he gets into the forum and answers people's questions. Everybody that works there knows how to use the machine, put them together. So they're real good about customer support. They'll send you parts if you accidentally break something. Like the new one, it has limit switches that are kind of delicate, and my shirt got caught on it, and I broke it off. But I just sent them an email, and they mailed me another one. So they're really good about that. So, yeah.
The drive mechanism on there, is that belt drive or screwdriver?
The Z-axis, it moves up and down with a threaded rod.
Okay.
The motor turns the threaded rod, and there's a Delrin nut in there that it rides on that threaded rod to move that up and down. But the other ones, the motors use belts.
So the X and Y axis are belt drive?
Yeah. Yeah, and the motor's got a little gear on there that the belt wraps around.
Does the larger one also use belts?
Yes. Yeah. One thing I noticed is they send you the exact number of screws, the exact number of washers. So, and some of this stuff is tiny, and I would drop it, and of course it just disappears when you drop it. So, but I ended up having to get on my hands and knees and find the stuff I dropped because they send you the exact number. Let's see what else. Some of the cuts are challenging, like it carves from the top. So if you want to drill a hole into the side of something, well, you either have to do that later and turn it on its side and then carve it, or just use your drill press or something. So, and shop space. What I did for shop space, this picture here at the bottom, is I made a fold-up work table. And I've mounted the big machine to the work table so I can fold it up when I'm not using it or if I need space. Now, one thing about a CNC machine is you have to calibrate it in order for it to cut properly across your whole work area. Like if your router travels from this corner of a 31-inch square board all the way to the other corner, and you're trying to make like an 1/8-inch groove all the way across, well, your surface has to be flat. All the rails have to be parallel and perpendicular, and even your router that's in there needs to be, perpendicular to the table. You don't want it tilted or anything, so that as it travels across that whole distance, in order to get the same depth groove all the way across, all that stuff has to be in line. So with this fold-up table, I was kind of worried about that. So I haven't cut anything big yet to see, but I was thinking if I had that problem, I would have to shim underneath the legs or something to get the table flat, because I didn't do like a torsion box or anything on top, But that's what a lot of the guys do. They do like a torsion box and make sure their table's perfectly flat and that sort of thing. But I just don't have much space. So to me, it makes more sense to be able to fold it up out of the way if I need the space. We've talked a little bit about the prices. The new Inventables ones, they call it X-Carve. The smaller one this size is $7.99. The bigger one that's, imagine 4 of these together, is $12.99. And you can add stuff to it if you want. The Shapeoko 3, one of the guys that worked on this with Inventables, he broke apart from the Inventables company and took the Shapeoko name with him. So he put out a Shapeoko 3, which is the second one down here. So you can see the rails are more solid, not the ones like this with the grooves in them and stuff. But that one goes for $9.99. So the Shapeoko 3 and the X-Carve are now kind of like competitors, even though they all started from this. Rockler sells a Piranha, which is $15.99 is where it starts. Rockler has one called Shark. I think they had the Piranha at the woodworking show. But you can see the different prices. There's a Carve-Right out there. And the Carve-Right is this one down here at the bottom. And I saw a video of somebody using that, and it's a little different in that you put the wood in and it kind of moves the wood as opposed to moving the cutter over the wood, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, the different machines have different ways of connecting. And also, I know Inventables is coming up. They're working on a way you can use an SD card, because a lot of people don't want to drag their computer out into the shop and connect it, or have a separate computer. They'd rather just carry an SD card out there, plug it in, and go. There's a ShopBot, digital wood carver. These are just different companies, and there's a lot more out there. But you can see, the price range pretty much, And then you can get into the real big ones that do a whole, like 4x8 sheet of wood. So. Just the physics of it. You want a flat and level work surface. You want everything square in all the directions. You have to tension the belts so they're the same tension. This motor and the motor over here, they have to move at the same time in opposite directions so that this whole carriage moves forward or back. And each side has its own motor with the belt and gear in there. So you have to tension the belts pretty much the same so that they'll both work in conjunction with each other. Just like using a router, the size bit you use determines how detailed you can get with your cuts. I've got a bit up here that's 1/32 of an inch, so it could carve real fine lettering and stuff. But of course, if you're using an 1/8 inch bit, then in your logo or text or whatever you want to cut, of course the smallest line needs to be at least an 1/8 inch thick in order for it to cut it. And I'll show you when I'm going to actually cut something in a minute. So I'll show you some warnings that it gives you.
On that, is there a way that you get to say a rough cut so that you clean off most of the material before you go to a real fine bit?
Yeah, you can tell it to cut all the like waste area, like in that family logo one up there, where it's cutting around the letters instead of cutting the actual letters. You could do I forget what they call it, but you could use a larger bit to cut out most of the waste, and then switch to a finer bit to cut out the detail. When you do that, you just have to make sure you keep your cutter at the same origin, so that when you change your bit, it knows exactly where the letters were when you did the first pass. So it cuts in the same area.
Does it have a limit switch or something so that it can find its origin? Or?
Yeah, the new one does. This one you pretty much have to rely on yourself to put it in the same place. And it'll home itself. The only thing you need to do is lower it to touch the wood, tell it that's the surface. And be careful not to move it anywhere else. When you're cutting, you need to determine the optimum speed and depth of cut for the cutter and the bit you're using. Like with that cutter and bit, I can only cut so deep on each pass. And in their software, they present you with a screen full of different materials, and you choose the material you're cutting, and you tell it what size bit, and then it has a default speed and depth of cut for you. So they make it kind of easy, but I have, in order to speed it up, increase the depth of cut. So it's like cutting twice as much as they suggested. And I kind of pushed it to the limit on that guitar clock. They suggested that I cut, I think it was 0.02 inches deep per pass. And when I saw to cut that 3/4 inch thick shape, it was going to take 25 passes for that thing to cut all the way through. I was like, that's going to take forever. So I increased it by 4 times. I changed it to 0.1 inches. And it did it with an 1/8 inch bit, but I could tell, you can kind of hear it struggling to cut that out. Just like, if you're trying to do something with a router, you can tell if you're cutting too much, You can hear it, it'll chatter or whatever. There's all different kinds of bits you can buy. There's engraving bits like the sharp V-bit points, spiral bits, carbide, high-speed steel. The ball nose ones are good for doing like the 3D stuff. When you're cutting metals, you do want to use like lubrication, and there's ones that automatically will squirt lubrication on it while it's cutting, or you can stick a drop of oil in there manually. So, dust collection, here's my X-carve up here. And I used an old CPAP hose for my dust collection. It's attached to my shop vac, and I've got it attached with a little hose clamp over there on the side so that it vacuums while it's cutting, so I don't have to monitor it or follow it around with a vacuum cleaner. I've seen guys use lock line, which is that you've probably seen camera tripods that have the adjustable legs, with the little circle things. Lock line looks kind of like that, except it's like a vacuum air hose kind of thing. So I probably will attach that at the end, and that way I can direct it like from both sides straight to where it's cutting, and that would improve the dust collection. Here's a picture of that right here. You can make these little dust shoes or dust boots and attach it. Of course, the only thing about that is you can't see it cutting. And you can even create an enclosure for the machine if you want to cut down on the noise and the dust that gets in the air. There's different clamping options. The one that I have at home, I've got these little clamps up here that will hold down the workpiece. It's got threaded inserts in the table so you can screw down clamps and clamp down your boards. There's different types of cam clamps people are designing out there, and wedges, and anything. You can also use double-sided tape, which I'm going to use today. That's what I do mostly. It's easy. There's different software out there. I found with using the CNC machine that probably 90% of the work is designing your logo or your text or whatever you want to make, and getting it to the point where you can send it to the machine and cut it. So if you want to do this, you will need to learn how to use Illustrator, Photoshop, Inkscape. Their website is called Easel. That's the software that they use. You could use, CAD software. Anything that draws vector art as opposed to pixels and pictures are things that you can use to design your artwork. Now, when you design your artwork, you need to think ahead and know, okay, if I'm going to use an 1/8 inch bit, so in my artwork, every piece of that artwork has to be at least an 1/8 inch thick or thicker. Otherwise, the 1/8 inch bit won't cut it because it's too fine of a line or something. So.